I'm Raya.
And I'm Trey.
We'll share our own experience building and selling a 7-figure business, owning multiple successful brands, and share the stories of other entrepreneurs who are incredibly successful in business.
This is Billion Dollar Vision, the podcast where we educate current and future entrepreneurs to expand your vision, give you strategy, and help you take your business far beyond what you thought was even possible.
Your future is limitless, and it begins right here, right now.
Let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Billion Dollar Vision podcast. My name is Trey, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Raya. And today we have a special episode that will be broken up into 3 parts for you, all about team. If you don't know, Raya started our former business in 2013. In 2014, she hired her first employee. By 2018, she had a team of 10. And by 2021, it was already a 7-figure business. And we're going to break down the highs and lows of having a team, the mindset shifts of who do you have to become in order to become a better leader, the connection between sales and leadership, how to book up a team, right? Most of you, if you're a solo, you're used to booking up yourself, but what shifts and changes do you have to make to book up a team? And then what are the small tweaks, the minor tweaks that you have to make if you're not used to making $250,000 or $200,000? Who do you have to become, and what tweaks do you have to make in order to believe that you can make 7 figures, right? But with that being said, we'll roll right into it. Rhea, how are you doing today?
Hey, Trey. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm blessed. I feel phenomenal. I'm really grateful for today. Really grateful for everything that we have going on in life. So yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation about team and help thousands of people.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So the first question I have for you, the very first hire I mentioned earlier was in 2014. Tell me what was going on around that time in 2014 that let you know that you needed to make a change, that you needed to hire.
So, I originally started Flirt in 2013 in a really small room. By the end of that first year in business, I had what I call manifested at the time, what I thought was a dream location. It was right down the street on a busy corner. It was like 600 square feet. It was actually half of a unit, which is perfect because that's what I could afford at the time. I wouldn't have even been able to afford a full unit, which was like 1,200 square feet. And I used to drive by it every single day. And that's why I feel like I really manifested it. So I moved into that location and it had 2 rooms to work out of and a little front desk area. And I always knew that I wanted to hire another waxer. And I knew that because I worked for a woman that had a team of waxers. And so sometimes when you see someone do something and you know it's possible, it shows you that it's possible, right? But it also gives you the belief of like, oh, if she can do that, I can do that. So I always knew from a really young age, I was 24 at the time, that it was possible to hire a team member and that I could train them to be just as good as me. And so in 2014, when I had moved into this little storefront, I was crazy busy. I was book solid every day, working, waxing 30 clients a day, cleaning at the end of the day, filling up my room and cleaning the room in between, checking clients in and out, answering text messages and DMs and doing social media at the time, which like Instagram was just starting for business. It was more like Facebook and Google and Yelp and all the other online platforms. And
Craigslist.
I was doing so many things. I was literally working 7 days a week. And I knew it was time. And it was probably a little even too late because I was so crazy busy. And I had this client that came to me since the first year. I think she found me on Groupon.
Kelsey.
Kelsey. And she was so sweet. So like her personality was bubbly. And she told me she was a full specialist, which in Florida means when you're a full specialist, you can do hair and skin. And she was working at a salon doing hair, but she wasn't really busy. And she said she was like looking for another job. And so I just kind of like I just really vibed with her. I didn't do any kind of formal interview. I just liked her personality. We got along and I was like, well, I'm hiring for a waxer if you're interested. And that was it. That was my hiring process when I was 24.
Wow. So with that being said, when you brought her on, what was the training process like? Did you have anything set in stone, set in place, any systems? Or was it just, hey, I need help?
It was, hey, I need help. This is how you answer phone calls. This is how you book clients. I always, from day one of hiring, I always thought it was very important to like know how to like check your own clients in and out. But even back then, I mean, I was using Square and like a journal, of like a scheduling journal. I wasn't using a computer system yet. So that was easy to train on. And then for waxing, that was always what I was very thorough at because I knew like my clients loved me so much that if I was to bring someone else on, like she had to be just as amazing as me. And of course, I have more experience and she had no waxing experience. She was technically a hairstylist. And so training her to be an incredible waxer was very important. And at the time, I just had this belief in myself that I could train anyone to be a really great waxer. And that's exactly what happened. And of course it takes time, but I think I didn't hold back on the training in terms of, fear of her leaving or fear of her, like training her and leaving. I just trained her as if she was going to be there for a long time. And thankfully she was.
All right, so you brought up something interesting with training. So we've had nearly probably 350 students take seven-figure team, right? And most of them, when they hire or if they've already hired, they always say, I'm going to teach someone to replace me in the treatment room, right? But they skip the step of answering the phones, booking someone, checking out. Why was that important to you?
Important to me because a couple reasons. One, we didn't have a receptionist at a time, which is very true for a lot of estheticians starting out, is like they don't have, someone answering the phones, it's them. And the first person they tend to bring on is another esthetician versus like a front desk person. It was also important to me because although when she was waxing, I would work the front desk sometimes, I knew eventually if I didn't like have to be there, like if she wasn't fully booked during the day, right? Like she needs to know how to do that. Like if I want to be home because she's not fully booked and I don't have clients, like I have the opportunity to be home while the business is essentially making money.
Gotcha. What fears did you have to overcome? Or did you have any? Or were you just saying, hey, I'm going for it. I know I need help. Let's just do it. Or was there any fears that you had to overcome? Any new stories that you had to tell yourself?
Thankfully, I was naive on a lot of things at the time. I was naive in the hiring process and systems and operations and in legalities of things. I just kind of like hired on the whim being 24 and thinking, hey, I just need some help. And so I'm going to hire. And obviously now I know better and we teach better. And a lot of what I teach is what I did right, but also the mistakes that I made. So, our clients don't have to make those same mistakes. But in terms of fears that come up, I think, although I went for it, excuse me, and I feel like this is a fear for a lot of people, is the fact that like, if I train this person, will they take all my clients and leave? And it wasn't a huge fear to me, but it's always kind of like in the back of your mind. And so at the time, with that being in the back of my mind, I wanted to be really likable by her. She was my first employee. I also had experiences with bad bosses, and I wanted to be the total opposite of that. And so I went overboard being so nice that it almost became more of a friendship which you think would be good, like be friends with your employees, like you should have that relationship. And it could feel that way when things are going good, but eventually when tough conversations have to happen or things aren't going good, it makes the whole dynamic a lot harder. And I learned that down the road. So that was one fear, and I compensated by being overly friendly and overly like wanting her to like me so much as a boss. Another fear was, right after I hired her, I got a letter from the landlord kicking me out essentially of the building because his friend wanted to move in. And I had just hired her. So from day one, I've always felt like when you hire someone, you are responsible for their livelihoods essentially. And so for me to be able to afford to move and to do another build out and to just like not close the business, I had to take her days down, and I just had to wax like most clients. I think I took her down to like 1 day a week. I felt horrible about it, but at the same time, I knew it's like either I can take her down in days so I can make more money to be able to reinvest into the business, or I don't do that and there's no business. And so thankfully, she, did have that second job. She also bartended, I think, on the side. And so that got both of us through that transition from being kicked out from one storefront location, which I thought was my dream location, and moving into like what actually was, my dream location and future of Flirt.
So would you say that the friendship piece was the biggest lesson that you learned? Or was there something else that you learned outside of that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many lessons. I don't think we have enough time in this podcast to talk about every lesson, because when you have...
What was the biggest lesson?
The biggest lesson
the one
in
that
terms
sticks
of
out.
that relationship.
In terms of the first hire, yes.
In terms of my first hire, I think for sure boundaries. I definitely overcompensated, and it definitely hurt the relationship later down the line because she always viewed us as friends first. I always viewed it as a boss-employee relationship first. Although I respected her, I really liked her. She was essentially a friend, but I always put the business first, and she did not. And so it made hard conversations harder. It made me not only overcompensate and be nice, but it made me overcompensate in pay. And, when she had a baby, I gave her and her husband a pay raise. When they got married, when they did so many life things, I gave raises when that's not ever the reason to give a raise, essentially. Like, you give raises when it makes sense in the business, when they earn it in the business by hitting KPIs. And that's not how I operated with her, because I always felt bad that, she looked at me as a friend, asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding and throw her a baby. Like, she asked me these things, and I had such a hard time saying like no, even though I felt uncomfortable about it, even, at the time.
Got you. The next hire that was made was who?
So the next hire I made, so when we moved into the bigger location, I knew I needed a higher ticket service.
Gotcha.
And so that's when I started doing research of like, what service could we add to like make up for it? Because even then, with all the expense of a new build out, and I just wanted to make it like my dream location. So of course I put everything I had into it and then some, right? And so debt, we were making like $15,000 a month, and it just wasn't cutting it. I was struggling so bad. And that's when I heard about microblading, and I thought, man, it looks so much better than permanent makeup, which was what everyone else was offering in Tampa at the time. And I said, that's what we're going to offer next in my business. Can charge $500 for it. Eventually that got to $1,000 because we were so in demand. And so the next hire was a microblading artist.
From the first hire to the second hire, how much did the profitability in the business change? Can you remember that? Or
I don't remember the profitability, but I do remember the revenue.
What was the revenue?
The revenue jumped by the end of that year. I think I hired her like the microblading artist in about the spring of that year. And from spring to the end of the year, we went from $15,000 months to $30,000 months.
And what about from hiring Kelsey, like going solo to hiring your first employee? What was the change in revenue?
I mean, I think by myself, that's a hard question. I don't totally remember. I think I did 100,000 maybe before I hired her, and maybe it jumped to like 150.
Gotcha. So it was worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing is, like I said, I still worked a lot at the time because I was either in the treatment room with clients, I was still answering phone calls, I was still cleaning, I was still trying to run the business and grow the business. On top of that, being a boss, on top of that, helping the team get booked. So there wasn't a lot of days like this, but the days that I didn't have clients and I could at least work from home, which, like I said, was at the time far and few between, even with a business that was doing 30,000 with 2 people on the team. It was like such a light bulb moment, right? Of like, wow, like my business is actually a business. My business is actually generating revenue without me having to wax clients myself or be there. And those light bulb moments, like, it gave me vision, and it gave me like that little dose of like, I want more of this eventually, because this is how a business should run.
One thing that stuck out to me earlier that you said was that you hired and you didn't know exactly the proper way to hire. You just hired, right? Mm-hmm. No formal interview process, no background check, like I said, no first or second interview, no checking references, none of that. You just went for it. And it makes me think about, they say sometimes the more you know, it slows you down, right? And stops you from getting started. And a lot of us, when we were children, we would just go for different things, right? We just have this big imagination and we don't know what it's going to take to do certain things. We just try to do it. But as we get older, we learn more and it slows us down. So that's something that stuck out to me. And one thing that we do in our program is all the things that you think are slowing you down, we actually give those to you and help you be able to go ahead and get started quicker so you can achieve your goals faster. My next question is, I want to discuss 3 of the top 5 skills that every entrepreneur should have: sales, marketing, and leadership. The other 2 that I'm leaving out are probably emotional intelligence and vision. So let's start with leadership. Who did you have to become in order to become a great leader?
I honestly think that like no one is born a great leader. I think leadership is a learned skill. And I think that because I did so much of it on my own in the beginning, I had aspects of being a good leader without getting outside help. Like I had the empathy, I had the understanding, I had like, the ownership of responsibility for my team of like, I don't think it's their responsibility to bring clients in the door. I feel that's my responsibility, and my responsibility to train them how to be really good and train them, how to keep their clients. So I think I had aspects of good leadership like naturally over the years. And then I think I became a better leader when I started investing in my business knowledge from, entrepreneurs that had teams of 100, 200, 300, because it's a different skill set completely, right? It's a different set of skills to be able to lead 2 people or 5 people on a team. And eventually that was, 10 people on average to 100 people. Like you have to have a different identity essentially. And so I think I naturally have the more empathetic, like caring, like want to be your friend aspect of leadership. And when I started learning from others, I got more of the, okay, well, we also need to keep them accountable, right? And track and measure and have tough conversations, because that's going to make them better. And if they're better, the business will be better. And if the business is better, everyone wins in the end. Because if you don't have a cash flowing business, like no one has a job. And the ultimate goal is to give everyone a great job, and so they can make a great income and enjoy their lives.
That's really good. So for me, leadership and sales are connected. As a leader, you have to be able to sell your vision to your team members, your employees, right? In terms of creating a vision, was there one particular thing you can point out that helped you start to shape the vision for the business? Was there a book? Was there a mentor or something that helped you understand, okay, this is what I want to do? And then from there, how were you able to communicate it to everyone else?
Eventually, when I was able to take myself out of the treatment room and grow a bigger team and get to the point where I was traveling, like I was literally traveling.
What year are we talking?
2017.
Okay,
so in 2017.
This is 4 years into having the business. 3 years after hiring your first employee, you get to the point where you're able to remove yourself.
After I had invested in total like close to $20,000 in mentorship.
Gotcha.
Over a 90-day period. And I learned how to be more of like a CEO role. And so once the business was running, grew tremendously, was running well without me being there because I had all the people in the right seats in the right places in the business. The vision for me was very clear for myself of freedom, and for the team, how could I give them really great jobs that they love coming to work and they make a great income. It's tough in a small business, and I think a lot of beauty business owners can resonate with. It's like the growth is capped at some point, because the truth is you just can't keep creating jobs out of nowhere to keep people because they want to grow. Like eventually, even if they have a great job and you care about them and they're making great income, they're going to leave because they want growth. Like everyone wants growth eventually. And I would say actually that's one of the mistakes I made was I would try so hard to create that growth when it wasn't necessarily needed in terms of roles, in terms of new services and things that actually didn't make sense for the business. But I was trying to make the team members happy, trying to keep them longer, which definitely worked in keeping them longer, but it didn't always make sense for the business. And so then I started turning to, well, what are other ways I could give growth, right? Because the vision is essentially capped unless I want to open multiple locations and have higher roles within the company, which I thought about for a little while, but then I decided ultimately wasn't for me at the time. And so then I thought, well, what if I start teaching them more about personal growth, because that impacted my life so much. And so they could get growth in different ways than just a growth in role, if that makes sense.
How did that turn out?
I definitely think it helped. I mean, you can't open your eyes to personal growth and learn some of these things, even if it's just one tiny aha moment.
Yeah, once you're exposed to it, you can't, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
it helped with not only, I think, the business and being happier and the energy you bring into work, right? Because everyone has problems. We're humans. No one gets away with no problems unless you're dead. And so clients, sorry. I mean, everyone has problems, but everyone, sometimes when people come into work, they bring their problems into work. And it's sometimes to get your team members to recognize what there is to be grateful for and recognize how blessed their lives are. And the personal growth aspect help with that. But I also saw it help them within their own lives. I saw personalities change of people that once had anxiety said, I'm no longer on anxiety medication.
Yeah, that's good. From a marketing standpoint, was there a specific person that you learned from? Because you had to go from booking yourself to booking one person to fast forward to 2018, you're talking about booking maybe 7 other people, right? You have 2 people up front probably. So 7 other people. What was that like? Who did you learn from a marketing standpoint? What are some of the things you did or maybe unconventional?
For the most part in the beginning, It was pretty natural for me. I have always looked at businesses from like a client standpoint of like, what attracts me to a business? Why do I book with certain businesses? You know, how do you find a business? And so from the beginning, without any outside help, I was, you know, on Google and getting reviews on Google and Yelp and Facebook. And I was running Facebook ads very early on, but I wasn't spending enough. Referrals, like I was doing all the organic stuff. And so that came naturally to me. When I started, when the business really took off is when I went to a microblading course out in like outside Orlando, Florida. And this woman who sucked at microblading, by the way, I took a training class with her. I didn't realize she sucked until I got there. And she's booked out 3 months in advance. Her brows were horrible. And that's when I also learned there's no regulation in microblading. And eventually I got my team different training. But the best thing, and like literally to this day, I'm so grateful for that woman because she said something that changed everything for me. She's booked out 3 months in advance with people that are paying her $600 for her brows. And she said she spends $500 it was like $500 a week. So $2,000 a month on Facebook ads. And I thought, man, she's spending $2,000 a month on Facebook ads, and I'm spending like $5 here and there on ads. Maybe I need to up my spend. And that changed the game for me. And I didn't start right away with $2,000, but I started going from like maybe $100, $200 a month to $1,000 a month. And all of a sudden, clients started rolling in the door, like brand new clients, right? Like a ton of them booking this $500 service that we had. And so once I saw that, and what I, teach our clients all the time is like, if something works, double, triple, quadruple down on it. And so that's what I did.
Pour gasoline on the fire. Mm-hmm. Would you say that it's harder? Well, is it harder to get sales and market, or is it harder to build a well-ran team?
Oh, team is the hardest part for sure. Marketing's easy. And eventually I learned how to market from experts, and I took classes and things like that. Team is the hardest part about business because you're hiring people that are different than you. You're hiring different personalities. Once you grow the team, you have to manage not only different people, but them as a group together.
Egos,
emotions. Like there's just so much to it. You also get one, sometimes, unless you learn how to do better, like we teach in our program, but a lot of times you'll get one face in an interview and then you get a different person a couple months later, right?
Yeah.
And that can be the law of familiarity. Like once, someone comes to work their first week, their first month, they're pumped, they're excited about this new job, but everything is new. But just like a new car over time, you're so excited about your new car the first week you get it. And then 2 years later, like my car, it's a mess and you're like, it's familiar. It doesn't have the same feeling. And so that happens in business and team too. And so it's very important to learn the skill set of hiring the right people from the beginning. And not that it's perfect. You may learn the right way to do it and still mess up, but it will still give you the shortcut, and it'll still be essentially a better hire than if you were like me in the beginning and just hiring people you like.
Speaking of hiring people that you like, so what was the biggest downside to that? Like what roadblocks did you continue to see about hiring people that you like?
I think the biggest one was like the way she'd come to me in a kind of woe is me or complain, asking, like saying, well, we can't really afford this, even though they were making great money. It was almost became like more of an envious, I feel like, relationship of, she literally told me like, I want to be you. Like, I want my position within your company to be what you do, where you can work from home, where you can travel the world. And I just could not give her that. Like, I want
my position to be your position.
Because we're friends, we're equals. And like, it's not that we're not equal friends on a people level, like I respect everyone, and it's not that I'm better than you, but like our positions are different.
I think that like listening to that, like some employees get it, right? But a lot of employees don't understand, like they can have that mentality. I want my position to be your position, but they have no idea if the business is profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know they're going to get their check every week or 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But like to have that mentality of I want my position to be your position, not knowing if you're necessarily making money, if you're taking a paycheck, right? Because a lot of times,
risk it actually took.
Yeah, well, yeah,
because they see it from one viewpoint.
They saw it from a certain position, right? They saw it once it got to a certain level, once it was already making six figures. But it's like, they sometimes they don't understand that leaders eat last, right? So you want to have the life of the leader, but you don't know how happy the leader is. You don't know what's exactly going on in the leader's life.
But here's the problem. I was happy. I was traveling the world. It was profitable. So I think it looked idealistic from the outside. But when I say about the risk and what it actually took to get there, she didn't experience, even though she knew about it, she didn't experience what I experienced of 4 years of chronic stress. And she experienced a little bit like, hey, for a few months to a year, you can only work 1 day a week. But the level of stress, waking up crying in the middle of the night for nights on end, not knowing what I was going to do, like there's no comparison in that. And so she thought, and she did stick with, like she was loyal, and I'll always like have respect for her, but she didn't understand what I was actually going through because I didn't actually share that with her. She knew what was going on, but I took on the stress. And that's where it's different.
Exactly. And although it got to the point where you were traveling, there's someone who's listening.
I earned that shit.
That's what I'm saying. But there's someone who's listening right now who may have a team and they could barely be making it each month themselves, right? But they're making sure their team gets paid.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is like they can make it look a certain way, right? To keep team morale. They're probably not putting their stress on the team. And
you're right. It was like that for a while before that happened. And before I was really able to scale and grow, because I learned from people more successful than me how to actually grow a team the right way and to become the CEO of your business. That was me. I was paying my bills, but I wasn't making crazy money, and I still had the stress and I still had, all the things that come with growing a team. But I think those who are willing to take that risk and hire a team and grow eventually, like I did, you'll reap the rewards of it. And it is very well earned. Like it was hard because sometimes I'd feel guilty about it. And, I'd hide my Instagram stories from my team, like when I was traveling, because I didn't want them to see like how much fun I was actually having. But like, truthfully, there's nothing to hide because like I earned it. Like I did. I took the risk. I invested. I did all those hard things for years and years. So like it's just not the same.
Yeah. That is the end of episode 1. Be sure to tune in to podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts or YouTube to check out episode 2.
Remember, it all starts with your big vision.
Stay determined and always keep your billion-dollar vision alive. Please, wherever you are listening, subscribe and leave us a 5-star review.
It would mean the world to us. See you next time.
I was listening for too long. Something in my heart told me to cool off.